Hello guys, in this episode I wanted to make something a little bit more complex and show off some of the modifiers that I use quite a lot. So to begin, we're just going to create a new Blender file. I've already done that, and we're going to press A. Oh, actually I'm just going to enable my screen keys so you can see that on here. So we're going to press A twice to deselect and then select everything, press delete and then delete. So what we're going to do to begin is we're going to add a new mesh. Oh, actually, I'll quickly show you what kind of thing I'm going to go for. So I'm going to go for something like this, where it has the shutters, and I'll also show you how we will achieve these sort of 45-degree angles right now. So firstly, we're going to add, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a plane. I'm going to press Tab to go into edit mode, press 7 on the numpad to go into the top, and press 5 on the numpad to go into the orthographic view. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Ctrl R and I'm just going to make a few loop cuts. So first I'm going to do that one, select those vertices and delete those. We're going to make a few across. We can get rid of some of these in a second. In fact, I'm going to make more than that. So we're going to go like that, and then we're going to maybe bring these ones in, kind of like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to the edge select, and we're going to select these. We only need to select these ones, and we're going to press delete, and instead of deleting edges, which will just delete all of the edges in there, what we're going to actually do is we are going to press delete and dissolve edges. So we'll get rid of these vertices at the top. So that looks kind of nice. I'm actually going to press Alt, and in fact I'm going to press Alt on these ones, so it'll select this loop. So last is the loop select, so you do that by pressing Alt. And we're going to press G, Y, and bring that in. So now we have this. Now we're going to press A twice and select it. And we are just going to go into our front view, press G and X and drag it out a bit so it's now over here. Press E to extrude. So you'll see now we have this. I'm going to press 1 again to go back into the front view. We're going to press space to bring up our search and type in shear with an A, which is a transform function. You'll see that if I drag my mouse around, even though it's changing the value in the bottom left, it's not doing anything, as we have to select an axis. And we're going to press Y. I don't entirely know why it's Y, because it's actually doing it on the Z axis, but it works, so don't knock it. We're going to press 1. We actually want it to turn the other way, so we're going to press minus. And you'll see now we have this nice 45-degree angle. I don't use that a whole lot. I only really use it for these window frames, to be honest. But if it works, it works. We're going to press A twice, bring it out. We're going to sort of move it around, get a feel for the scale of it all. Press G and Z and bring this down. And we are going to press space again and use the last thing that was put in. Going to press 1 and Y again, and it will do the same thing. Now we're going to press A twice, press N to bring up this menu on the right, and we're just going to center it on the Z axis, which is, that's not what I want to do. There we go, on the Z axis. And there we go. So now all we're going to do is we're going to go into the, in fact no we're not going to do mirror, actually no, let's do mirror. Okay, so we're going to go into the add modifier, in the modifiers tab, we're going to choose mirror. It will mirror it on the origin, so if I drag it around in object mode you can see the origin is moving, so it's moving that. If we do an edit mode, then you'll see that if I move it, it actually changes it based on where the mirror is. So we're actually going to bring that out just a little bit, maybe bring it in a bit more. So now we're going to, in fact we're not going to do that. We're going to click apply because I don't really want to mess around with that. So we're going to press C to do our select, and we're going to do Shift and D to duplicate. We are going to then bring this in to 0 on the x-axis, press R to rotate and type in 90. We are then going to enable our snapping, so in the bottom you can see this magnet, we'll click on that magnet there, and click on vertex, which is going to bring this up a little bit initially without snapping it. So you'll see there's actually a gap there. So what we're going to do is we're going to hover our cursor over this point here, the one at the top. We're going to press G and Z, and then we are just going to kind of mess around with it and see where we can get it snapped to. So for some reason, if I hover over that one, it doesn't want to work, but if I hover over this one, then it is lining up these vertices at the top. Now what we're going to do is we're going to press A, we're going to type in, we're going to press C to do our select again, select all of the vertices on this side, not the ones on that side, hover over that, and press G and X and bring it in. And we're going to do the same on the other side, pressing C, G and X, and then bring it in on the other side. And you'll see now we have this nice top of the window frame. We're going to now press L. No, we're not, because it's not going to work. Yep. So we're going to press L. Sometimes it will work, sometimes it will not. And it generally just tends to select the entire unseamed or uncreased island. We're going to press 1 again to go back to our front view. Press, oh, and actually no, we're not. We're going to press P to separate by selection. So now you can see these are two separate objects. And then we're going to add a modifier, and we're going to do mirror again. And we're going to set it to do it on the Z axis by changing it over here. So now you can see we have this nice window frame. Okay, so our next step is we need to, in fact, I'm just going to quickly bring out these back faces. So I'm going to press C and just select all of these back faces. And then the ones at the top as well. I'm just going to do G, Y, and I'm going to type in 0.5. We're going to do the same on the other ones. Making sure to select the right ones, G, Y, and then 0.5. Just to make it a little bit thicker. Next, we're going to focus on the glass that's going to go inside. So we're actually going to, the way that I would do this normally is I would do, what would I do? I would go back into one of the objects, I would select one of these planes that are on the inside, select the one on the other side, do Shift and D to duplicate, press R so that it sets it back to the original position, press P to do it by selection, and now you can see that we have just these two faces isolated, but they are still on the original object. So now what we're going to do is we're going to actually join these up. We're actually going to join one of them, and then we're going to delete these other two edges so that it's now just a flat plane. We're going to do G and Y and bring it in just a little bit. Press E and extrude it along the axis that it wants us to do it on. Now you can see that if I sort of hold this at an angle, it goes black. That means that your normals are the wrong way around. So how we fix that is we press A and select it all. We go into shading / UVs on the left. To bring up that menu, press T, by the way. And we do recalculate. If it doesn't fully recalculate and one of the faces is still the wrong way around, all you have to do is click on flip direction to do it manually. That sometimes happens with some more complex objects. I don't know if the origin is perfectly central right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Shift, Control, Alt, and C. And we're going to do origin to geometry to center it in case it's not quite central. And I'm not really sure if that actually worked, to be honest. Oh, what am I doing? Wrong one. Okay, I'm sure that worked. Okay, what we're actually going to do quickly is just change into cycles render, and we are going to add a sun. Press Shift and Z. There you go. That looks kind of nice to me. What I would recommend doing whenever you start a new project is to go into this third menu, the scene menu, go down to color management and change the render view to filmic. And you'll see what that does. It just changes it slightly in brightness, but it makes it a little bit softer, which is kind of nice. And now I kind of want some like diagonal bars on my window. So how we're going to achieve this is we are going to create a cube. I'm going to press Tab. I'm going to press R and Z and rotate it 90 degrees. No, not 90 degrees. RZ and 45 degrees. What we're going to do now is get rid of these ones, these vertices at the back, because we don't really need them. I'm going to select these ones on the front and just bring them in a little bit, just so it's a little bit softer. Maybe like that. We're going to do S and Z, and we're going to type in maybe 20, and then S and Z and type in 0.1. That looks nice. So we're going to do S and Z again. Type in 5 just to make it a little bit bigger. R and Y and see if it stretches across. No, it does not. If I type in 45, it doesn't quite reach the boundary, so we're actually going to do S and Z and type in 2. Now if I do R and Y and type in 45, you'll see it does work. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add an array. So what an array does is it does exactly what it says on the tin. It creates an array of objects. This is great, but it's absolutely not going in the right direction at all. It should be going upwards, not down, not right, and there's quite a lot of space. So the way that we change this is we go to our relative offset, we type in 0 on the X, and we leave the Y blank, and on the Z we're going to type in 0.1. The reason we type in 0.1 is because it takes our boundaries from the outside, the outermost points of the object. So imagine there's a big box containing the object. It's gonna, if we type in 1, it's gonna start adding an array from where that invisible box would be. We're actually gonna change this back to 0.2 because I think that will look better. And we're gonna bring it down just a bit. Say there. I think we've got it good with 8. So now what we're going to do is we're going to click apply. We are going to press Shift and D, and we don't want to move it around, so we're going to press R to reset it back to where it was. So now there's 2 objects overlapping each other. We're going to press Tab to go into our object. We're going to type in SX to scale along the X-axis and type in -1. You'll notice that this has done the same thing as before, where it's all black. And the way that we fix that again is we type in, is we click on recalculate on the shading/UVs menu. So that looks good. Although we have actually not got this. So we're gonna select the frame of ours, and we're gonna press H, and you'll see if I go into the top view that these bars are not actually touching the window. So we're just going to select both of them, and we are going to press the 7 on the number pad. We're going to make sure that snapping is enabled to vertices, and we're going to press G and Y to move it along the Y-axis, and now you can see that these are now lined up with the window. Okay, excellent. We're also going to, is that in the center? No. In fact, what we're going to do is we're going to select both of these bars, select this pane of glass, press Ctrl P to parent it to the object, do object in brackets keep transform, and then we're going to select this pane of glass and change the Y to 0. Now if we press Alt H, you'll realise it hasn't actually changed the frame, so we're also just going to move the frame ever so slightly. And then we're going to select both of these lots of bars. We're going to do Ctrl J. We're going to make sure that our cursor is in the middle. If it isn't, and it's at, say for example, 1 on the Y-axis, and you want to reset it quickly, say that that's 4, and that one's at 6, you can do 0 tab 0 tab 0, or, what have I just done? I don't know. Or you can just press backspace whilst hovering over any of these, and it will reset them all to 0. Now what we're going to do is we're going to, with our joined object, we're going to do Shift Control Alt and C again, and we're going to do origin to 3D cursor, which will set it back to 0. Then we're going to add modifier, do a mirror, and we're going to do it on the y-axis. So now it's mirrored on the y-axis. It's 2. Oh, sorry. You can't really see it very well with it rendered because there's no light on this side, but you can ever so slightly just see it. Okay, now what we need to do is get rid of the outside of all of these bars. Now the way that we're going to do that is we're going to use our other trick. We're going to select this frame, we're going to press tab and select the plane on this side and the plane on that side, Shift D, P to separate, and it's done the same thing again if I can find it, where now we have these two separate planes, but it hasn't actually affected the original object. So now what we're going to do is we're going to press tab while selected on that object, so you see we have these two planes, and we're going to press S, Y, and type in 20. So now it brings them out like that. This is where the magic happens. So what we're going to do is, to save time, instead of connecting all of these edges like that, what we're going to do is we're just going to grab one of these faces, press Shift, no, not press Shift, press E, press Z, X, and just hover over the plane on the other side. You might realize that it's not actually connected. All we need to do to fix that is go to Tools and click Remove Doubles. And now they're connected. Now what we're going to do is we're going to select these bars. We're going to click Apply to apply the mirror. We're going to add another modifier and use Boolean. Now the way that Boolean works is, if you are a programmer, you'll probably know. But what we need to do, the way that Boolean works is it takes two objects and in union it will join them. With intersect it will leave whatever is intersecting, I believe. Actually, I put the Boolean on the wrong object. I'll show you. So what's that? That's plane 03. So we add this Boolean, we select an object and we type in the plane that we want. You'll see on the inside it's left it, but it's a bit weird. And carve is doing nothing because it cannot execute the Boolean operation. I'm not entirely sure why. The difference will remove the objects that are the part of the object that's overlapping with it. And with carve, it's also not working. Not sure why, but we'll fix that in a second. And with union, it will just join them. And it will create these lines as well. We do want to use carve though. The reason we want to use carve is, quite simply put, it's a better operation. It leaves things a lot more clean, and with much fewer random lines going everywhere. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to go back into our big cube, and we kind of want to do a negative of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to select these outside faces. We're going to do Shift D to duplicate them, press P, and separate by selection. Then we're going to delete this middle cube. We're going to press Tab, and we are going to extrude. Press S, and then we're going to do Shift and Y, so that it only extrudes it along the X and the Z axis. So we have this giant cube essentially, with a hole in the middle. This face is flipped, so we need to fix that. So we're going to go into our shading/UVs and click on Recalculate. Excellent. So now it's like a giant window frame. We're going to go back to our bars. We're going to click on Object, and we're going to do Plane 004. We're going to click on Difference, and it's still not working. Not entirely sure why. Let's see if I can make that a bit bigger or something. I'm not entirely sure why that's not working. Sometimes it just doesn't. If it doesn't like to, so we're actually going to go back to BMesh. We're going to click Apply, and annoyingly, we are going to have to get rid of some of these excess vertices, which isn't actually so bad in this case. We're going to quickly just see if this is still fairly tidy. Yeah, it is. So now we have these nice bars going across the window. If I select this plane in the middle and I create a new material for them, so going over to our material tab, clicking the plus to add a new material, we're going to call it glass, and down here where it says diffuse BSDF, we're actually going to change that. There is a glass shader inside of Blender, which works quite nicely. Now what we're going to do is we are going to set up the shutters. So we're going to choose which we want our front to be. Still a bit undecided. I think we're actually going to go for this side. So I'm going to quickly create a hinge. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to we're going to go with a cube because it doesn't need to be super perfect. We're going to bring that cube out a little bit. Press 7 on the number pad. I would usually move this to another tab to create just so this window's out of the way, but I want to keep a rough scale in my head. So I'll just create it next to it. So I'll go to the top view again, press tab. We're going to do S and Y to bring it in a little bit. And then we're going to select these edges over here. We're going to move on the X-axis. We're going to turn off, if you're moving it around and it's still trying to snap, just do Shift and Tab. We're going to bring it out like that. We're actually also going to select this face, which is the face on the side. We're going to do E and bring it out like that. Then we're going to do a loop cut in the middle, which makes it a rough square with a cross in the middle. We're going to then select these points. We're going to do S and X, and we're going to type in 0.7. That looks good. We're actually just going to do it on the bottom one, GX and 0.7, or nope. In fact, how much we're moving by. GX and 0.15. We'll just do them separately. A little bit more time, but much less intensive on the brain. GY and, oh no, 0.15. Then we're going to select both of these, GY 0.15 minus. So now we have this nice little hinge. We're actually going to make this a little bit taller, like that. We actually want the origin to be in line with this line over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring it in like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. Sometimes if I am struggling a little bit, then I will zoom in really far and just try and line it up as close as I can get it. I can usually get it pretty perfect. So now it's in line with that, and we're just going to do the same thing with this origin. We're just going to zoom in really far. The further you get, the more you realize how off you are. And that looks pretty good to me. So now if we do R and Z, you'll realize it's rotating around that in object mode. But this is not how hinges work. So we're going to create a loop cut in the middle. And we're going to, instead of moving it around, we're going to press R to reset it. And then at the top, we're going to select all of these vertices and we're going to delete them. Now we need to fix that down there. We need to, because this is an empty void at the moment, we're going to select both of these, press F to join them. And then we're going to do that as well. We're gonna connect all of these like that, and then we're going to press K to use the knife tool. We're going to click on this point over here, this vertex, and we're going to click on that one. So now you can see that we have this cross in the middle again. Do we have it? No, we do not. Now we kind of just want to go back into object mode, go back to the, we're on the back view. Yeah, we do want the back view. If you're on the front view and you want to get to the back, it's the same button on the number pad, it's still number pad 1, but you hold control and press number pad 1 and it'll switch it to the back. That happens for left and right as well. So at the moment we're on the right, if we hold control, then we're on the left, and the same for top. and bottom. On the number pad as well, if you press 4 and 6, then they will rotate you, and the same with 8 and 5. But we need to go to the back view again. So now what we're going to do is we are going to press Shift to duplicate this, and we're going to press R and type in 180 to rotate it. So now we have this hinge. We're actually going to parent this, so we're going to quickly just name these. We're going to name that one hinge underscore P1 for part 1. And then we're going to do a dot 000 afterwards because we're going to be duplicating these, so we'll just increment that. And the same thing on the other one, we're going to do hinge underscore P2 dot 000. Okay, so now we have those named. We are going to select the P2 and we're going to select the P1, making sure that this one is a slightly, this one's more of an orange outline and that one's the red one. That means that the one with the orange outline is your active object. And then we're going to do Control P and click on Object, Keep Transformation. So now if we move this original object and move around like that, and if we move this one, it'll move separately. But it means that if we rotate this one on the Z-axis like that, and then we move this one, it will stay like it. So now we are going to reset that one. We're going to select the P1 and we're going to drag it out to this window. We want it to be a bit smaller than this. And just line up like that. We're going to go to our top view. We're going to re-enable our magnet tool, not magnet tool, snap tool by doing Shift and Tab. And we're going to line up with the edge of this. So now it's right up to the side. Well, that looks pretty good to me. We're actually going to duplicate this one. Oh, we're actually going to duplicate both. So now it's added a P1.001. And inside of that is the P2.001. We're going to then select the P1.001. And on this Z location, we're going to change it from 11.2543 to minus, and it will bring it down. So now we have our hinges. We're actually just going to move the sun to the other side. You don't need to move the object necessarily, just rotate it, because it is a sun. Now we are going to, in fact, first before we continue, I'm just going to select the pane of glass and these bars and just move them in a little bit. So I have a bit more space on this side. And we are going to go to the back, and we are going to add an object. We're going to add a plane. We're going to do R and X and type in 90. And we are going to go straight into edit mode from here and move on the X-axis, making sure to turn off our snap tool by pressing Shift and Tab. We're going to make it a bit bigger, change it on the X again. This is just sort of a game of moving it around, seeing what sizes you like. We're going to do S and Z, make it bigger. We're actually going to move these hinges in a little bit. Move on the X again, just, you know, sort of like getting it to how you want it to be. If you want to move it just a little bit slower, so at the moment I'm moving it like that. If I want to move it a little bit slower than this, I can press Shift and just move it ever so slightly. And I think that looks good. We're going to press Shift and Tab to snap it. We're going to do G and Y. And for the time being, actually no, are we going to have it on the inside or the outside? We're going to have it on the outside of these hinges. And then we're going to do E to extrude. We're going to leave it on the axis that's trying to extrude on. And we're going to bring it out like that. This is also flipped, as you can see from it being so dark. So we're going to make sure it's all selected and click on recalculate. So let's now turn it around. We're actually going to bring in these hinges a little bit, just bring them into the wood. And just making sure that we do it on the top as well. So we're going to go to the top view and we're going to change this gap. Making sure that our snaps on. Do G and Y and bring it in like that. Now we're going to just select this outside face, do G and Y. Again, just sort of resizing things to see how you like them. I think we might actually have this on the inside. I can't get that to snap and I don't really care. We're actually going to make some changes to these as well. We're just going to make this a little bit thicker and bring it out a little bit. We're going to bring it out by maybe another 0.5. Doesn't really matter so much. Yeah, but now it's a little bit thicker, which is nice. Thick is good. G and Y and bringing them out like that. G and Y and bring it out like that. Yeah, that looks good for now. And we're going to make some changes to this. I'm just going to also select that inside face and just extrude it a little bit more. I just want it to be a little bit thicker, but not overlapping these bars down here. That looks pretty good to me. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go into our front view, back view even, and we are going to add some loop cuts. You can add more cuts by using the scroll wheel. And I like cuts wherever the purple lines are. We want 2. So we're going to add 2. We're going to do S and X and bring it out a little bit. We're going to add some more loop cuts, bring those ones up. A couple more, bring those ones in. And then what we want to do is we want to, in fact, so what I just did there is I just accidentally triangulated it by pressing Control and T. We're going to do Control and Z because we're not going to use that now. We're going to make a singular loop cut in between. And whilst it is a perfectly rectangular shape, we're going to do Shift, Control, Alt, and C and change the origin to the geometry, which means it's perfectly in the center before we make any physical changes to it. We're going to then select faces. We're going to select these, and we are going to select down here our pivot point. We're going to change this to individual origins. So at the moment, if I do S, then it will move it as if they're interacting with each other, like a black hole. We don't want that. We want them to move separately, so if I choose individual origins, they move more like that. Now, we're going to press E, because I want to show you how to do things the wrong way. Now if I do S, you will see that on this side it's a thickness of, say, 1, and on this side it's a thickness of 2. They are different. We do not want that. We want these to be perfectly the same width all the way around. Now the way that we achieve that is we press Ctrl Z twice. We do not extrude, we press I, which doesn't inset. And we're going to press Shift just to change ever so slightly. So now with this inset, it's now made these outlying faces exactly the same width all the way around. Beautiful. So now we're going to press G and Y and bring them in a little bit. Now we're going to press E this time and bring them out. We're going to do Shift and Tab and just have them flush to the outside of this object. And we want to scale it in, but again, you'll realize the same thing is happening where this is less thick than this. We're going to press Control and Z, and the way around this that I use quite a lot is I press I to do the inset again, and go back to the edge select, and then we're going to select these outside edges with Alt. If I press Alt and right click on this one, it's just going to unselect the other one, so make sure you're pressing Shift and Alt to select your next one. we're going to press delete and we're going to dissolve edges. Now I quite like that. That looks pretty good to me. And I think we will stick with it. Now, our next step is we need to get another one of these. So we're going to do Shift and D, and on the X location at the top, instead of 4.75757 or whatever, we're going to do minus, and boom, we have another one. Make sure that you are naming these as you go along. I'm not. It's a good habit to get into, but if you can, then try and do so. We are going to also copy these hinges across the other side, so we're just going to select all 4 of those. We're going to do Shift and D, and we are going to, for the sake of ease, press 0 to make sure that we're rotating around the pivot point. We're rotating around the 3D cursor. Make sure it's at 0, and do R, and type in 180. So now we have them on the other side. We now want to parent these to a hinge, so we're going to parent this shutter to that top hinge, making sure it's the second part, the part that's rotating around this first part. We're going to do Control and P, set parent, and keep transform. And we're going to do the same on the other side. With more complex objects, you can add some object constraints. So for example, this hinge is always going to be what that one equals. You would do that maybe by copying the rotation along the Z of, what object is that? Hinge P202. We're just going to do the object dropper actually and just select that one. And now if I rotate that one, oh, what's it doing? Oh, I'm rotating around the origin. Rotate around the median point. So now we'll lock it to that. In fact, yeah, we'll use this object constraint because it makes things easier. So next to the modifiers, add an object constraint, copy rotation, make sure you're rotating on the Z, and then select your other hinge. So now these are always locked to each other. And we're going to do the same on the other side. We're going to select this bottom hinge, we're going to add an object constraint, copy location, make sure you're only using the Z, and we're going to do this object dropper again. This is generally good for like moving parts, for example, and especially good in animation, good for a lot of robotic things. The only issue I don't really use it a whole lot is I tend to have issues with it. This isn't because there's an issue with it, this is because I'm bad. But we're fine with that. Yeah, let's just have that open. Our last real step, in fact, no, we're going to add just a small ledge at the bottom. Just create a cube. I'm just going to sort of mess around with it and bring it up a little bit. Go into object mode. Move it around, scale it up on the x-axis, bring out this face. Just like a little ledge, basically. Shift tab and bring it into there so it's flush against this side. We don't really need this back face, we're never going to see it. So we're going to make sure it's selected, we're going to press delete, and we're going to click only faces. So now there's no back face there. It makes it a little bit easier to unwrap and things like that. But yeah, just kind of like that little ledge there. Our last real step is to add a wall. So in fact, actually, we're going to take the plunge. We're going to go to our side view. We're going to select these faces on the inside. Oh, what am I doing? Yep, all of these ones. We're going to do G and Y, and we're just going to bring them out by -1. If your numbers are substantially less than mine when you move things, it's just because in relation to this original grid, my object is very large. At the end, I will parent everything together and scale it down. But right now, I don't really care. So now we have this, yep, and we're gonna, in fact, we're just gonna bring this pane of glass in a bit more as well. just because the wall isn't even going to be that thick. So we're going to add another cube. We're going to make sure it's fitting in the confines of this frame. It is. And we're going to scale up. We're going to do Shift and Y to make sure that it's not scaling on the Y-axis. So now we have this giant cube. We're going to do S and Z and bring it down in size a little bit. You'll realise that there's a big problem. Currently, it is overlapping the window. It's no longer a window, it's just a frame attached to a wall. It's about as good as a painting that can conceal itself. And the way that we're going to fix this is we are going to do what we did earlier. We're going to select the outermost edges of this frame, just on one side. We don't need both. We're going to do Shift and D, press P to separate, and now we have these objects. We're going to do S and Y and bring them out a little bit just so they're a bit more manageable. We're going to bring them out by 10. And we're going to do what we did earlier. We're going to select one of them. We're going to press E and bring it up to this. Currently I'm trying to get it to snap to this top plane, but it isn't, so we're going to press Shift and Tab. We're going to then press A twice to deselect and then select everything. Go into Tools and click on Remove Doubles. So now it's just one plane at the top. This is all backwards as well, so we're going to click on Recalculate. Okay, so after we've recalculated, we are going to go back into the object mode. We're just going to quickly make a note of this name. So it's plane 005. Again, you should be naming your things. I'm not, because I'm trying to go quickly. We're going to add modifiers. We're going to add the Boolean again. Hopefully carve will work this time. We're actually going to, we could select it from this menu, but we're getting up to quite a lot now. Oh, actually no, it is there. I'm just going to use the object dropper just because I can. And you'll realise that it's on the intersect operation by default. We don't want this inside bit, we want the outside bit without the inside bit. So the opposite of intersect is difference. And we're just going to click apply because it's actually letting us do it this time. Now we're just going to delete this face, this object, and excellent. We have our window frame. You'll notice that this is a little bit messed up. That is a weird shaped island, or weird shaped face. So what we're going to do is we're just going to quickly fix that up with the knife tool. We're going to select this this vertex here, and this one on the outside. So now this nice one at the top. We're going to do the same at the bottom. And on the other side. This is generally pretty quick to do. A little bit tedious, but still quick. And always worth doing, especially when you change your shading to smooth, for example. It will stop any issues there. But yeah, so we have the fundamentals of our window. I'm actually just going to quickly reset this rotation on the z-axis back to 0. And the same for the other one, we're also going to set that one back to 0. We are going to in fact, we're going to hide everything that we don't need right now. So we're going to hide these frames, that wall. We're going to hide this glass and those bars. We're going to hide that ledge. We're going to go to the top view. And we are going to delete this backside because it's very flat and I don't really want it to be flat. I want it to be what it is on the other side. Make it a little bit more interesting. So we're going to select everything on the other side. So now it's hollow. And because we set the origin back to the center earlier, it means that if we add a modifier now and use the mirror one, press Y. Why is it not working? Oh, so that's why it's not working. So for some reason, it's making me do it on the z-axis, even though the z-axis is pointing up. This is because our rotation on the x-axis is at 90. The way that we will fix that is by doing Control and A and applying the rotation. So now it's reset the rotation back to 0, but not move the object. You can do this with location as well. So if I do it with location, it will move it back to the center, not the 3D cursor necessarily, but the center. And the same with scale. If I change the scale and I want to reset this back to 0, back to 1 even, I want this to be the default size of it, I can do that for scale as well. We do not want that though, so we're going to change it back to how it was. This is especially important when you unwrap objects because it will give a non-uniform shape with complex objects if you haven't applied these. But now we can change our axis back to the Y and it will actually do it on the Y axis. We're going to just delete that one because we'll just copy this one in a second. Now if you realize, in a second, if I go back to object mode and apply, these, oh no, they are connected. Ignore me. So what we're going to do is we're going to do Shift and D, copy that one. And again, in the X, we're going to change that to minus instead of positive. So now we have this on both sides. We're going to do Alt H to unhide those. We're going to select these top hinges. Oh, actually I need to quickly parent those ones again. We're going to do R and Z, and we're going to type in 125 because that's what it was at before. This one we're going to change to 119 minus, so it's open a little bit less. So that looks fairly good to me. I just want to add some curtains on the inside quickly. So the way that I would generally do this is I'm going to grab a circle. I'm going to press M and move it to another layer because I don't really want to do it on this layer. You can see our layers at the bottom, so I've actually moved it to the second layer. We're going to click there. Oh, actually no, we're going to delete that object. We're going to stay on the second layer, but we're going to add another one. You'll see why, because 32 is way too many vertices for what I want. We're actually going to change it to 8, and we're going to delete all of these ones. We're then going to select it. We're going to do S and X and bring it out a little bit like that. We're going to do Shift and D. We're going to type in our Z and 180. We're going to bring it to the other side. This doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to do our snapping and move it in like that. So now we have this nice, it's not a very nice S, but it is an S. We are going to remove the doubles in the middle. So it's gotten rid of that one of the points in there, and it's to combine them. We're going to make sure this is all selected, and on the global we're going to change that back to 0. And what we're going to do is we are going to add an array. So I'm just trying to think how many we'll need. That looks good to me. We're going to, no, we're not going to click on merge, we're going to click on apply. So now we have this, we're just going to make sure it's all selected and just click remove doubles just in case. Yeah, removed 4 vertices. So without removing those, these are actually separate points. And the same there. So we're going to make sure it's all selected and click on remove doubles. We're then going to press M and bring this back to our original layer. And we're going to press, for the top orthographic view, we're going to bring this in over here. Press S to scale it down. So this, for example, is going to be our curtain. And we're going to also do Shift, Control, Alt, and C and change origin to geometry. We're going to do this again in a second, actually. But we're going to extrude it down first. So it's not like this. We are going to quickly select it all and make sure it's rotated the right way. I'm not entirely sure, it's a bit hard to tell. Yeah, that's rotated the right way. We're going to solidify it. We're not going to apply this modifier, but we're going to leave it solidified just so it's a bit easier to visualize. Right, actually no, we are going to hide it for now by clicking this little eye. because we're going to add a load of loop cuts like this. And then we are going to select one of these outermost points. We're going to turn off our snapping tool, and we're going to turn on our proportional editing tool just to the left. We're going to click on connected, and we're going to do G and X. We're going to change this area of influence and bring it in just like that. We're actually going to mess around with this for a second. So I want to bring it in that much there. I'm just going to move it in like, so this might take a second to get, perfect, but that's fine. You have more than a second, hopefully. I feel like I might not get this perfect, but that's fine. Nothing is ever perfect in life. So that looks good for the sake of our example. I'm just going to turn on our solidify again. We're actually also going to add a subdivision because I kind of don't really like looking at that. We're just going to up this subdivision like that. Subdivide fixes everything. We're just going to add a kind of a rope. We're going to bring this over to the other layer again. We're going to bring that one over too by pressing M and then clicking on the layer that you want to send it to. This doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, not in any way, shape or form. So what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of overlap these. We're going to see where that's going in at the bottom, where we want it to be. So we're going to move it like that. And we're just going to make this a bit bigger. I'm going to then select these two edges here, press Ctrl and B to bevel it. I'm then going to go to my top view. I'm going to click K, do Z and Z and C. So C is for the object constraint, the angle constraint, so it'll do it on a 45-degree sort of angle in any direction, as you can see like that. And Z means it will cut through. So we're going to enable both of these. We're going to cut it in the middle, and we're just going to do Alt to select this loop, and we're going to do S and Y and bring that in. We're going to then add a subdivision, and we're going to add two loops like that and just make this a little bit bigger. That looks awful, but for the sake of our example, it kind of works. We're just going to mess around with some of these. I'm going to bring that one in some more. We're actually going to do what we did earlier and do the inset faces. So we're going to select these top ones, we're going to do I, and then on these outlying faces, on these corner edges, we're going to select them with Shift and Alt, and we're going to press Delete, and then dissolve edges. So now it's a bit more rounded. These ones at the back, so that square, I'm going to use my mean crease and bring that up to the top. So that looks fairly decent, that'll work. And then we are going to do Control A and reset the location, because we're kind of like not really messing around with this too much because no one's ever going to really see these. And we're going to so now that the location is reset, we're going to add a modifier. We're going to add the mirror, and we're going to do the same. We're going to reset the location on the curtain, and we are going to add another mirror. So now just like that, we have some nice curtains behind. I'm actually just going to bring these out ever so slightly. I don't really want them showing quite so much. So we need to do this in edit mode, because if I move it around in object mode, it's just going to do that. So we're going to do G and X. I'm going to go into the other object, G and X. And then perfect. Just going to see what that looks like in the perspective mode. That looks kind of good to me. For the sake of this example, I'm going to just add a plane as my background. In fact, no, we're not. We're gonna quickly parent everything. So we're firstly going to select both of these frame objects, and we are going to parent these to the wall. We're also going to do the same with the bars, and okay, so the bars are going to be parented to the glass. If I can select it, and then the glass is going to be parented to the wall as well. So now if we move around this wall, you'll see that some of this stuff is parented. Now these hinges, the part 1 hinges, so the ones that are attached to the window frame, we're going to parent these to the wall as well. I would usually connect them to the window frame, but it's not actually, yeah, let's just connect it to the window frame. So now if we move around these, it'll move around those two. This ledge, we're going to parent that to the bottom window frame. Make sure we actually select the window frame. See, if you name things, then you can select them up here. I'm not naming things for the sake of time, but it will make it a little bit easier to select the things that you want to select. So you'll see that there's 3 separate things that aren't connected. That'll be the curtains, so we're actually going to parent these ropes to the curtains. The curtains we're going to parent to the wall. And I believe that is everything. Yes, it is. So now if I change the size of this wall to 0.1, you'll now see that it is substantially smaller, but it's scaled everything else with it. And I'm going to do Control A, and I'm going to reset the scale of this object, so now that's its default scale. I'm now going to add just a small floor behind, just for the render. So we're going to add a plane. We're going to do G and Z and bring this down to the floor. We're actually going to change the size of this wall, make it a little bit more realistic in height. And we're also going to make it a little bit wider, why not? We have that ability. So we're going to bring that down again, make sure it's snapping so it's perfectly connected to the floor. We're then going to go into edit mode. We're going to scale this up to 20. That sounds good. And we're just going to move it. We're going to do G and Shift and Z to move it only on the X axis. The X and the Y axis. We're going to change it on the Y axis only. Move it back like that. So now we have our nice window. And we are going to add a camera at that angle. We're going to move this around. You'll see that it's moving kind of in a blocky way. That's because I still have the snapping mode on, so we're going to do the same thing that we did before and do Shift and Tab, and now we can move it like that. So I kind of like it like that. We're going to press the period key. so that it's moving to our 3D cursor. If that's not in the middle, just remember you can press backspace and it'll reset it. We're going to scale this in like that, like so. I'm going to do it slightly off center, as always, so I can have my logos in the thumbnail. And we're just going to bring this outside wall just over a little bit more. So now it's like that. Now I'm just going to quickly add some textures to this by unwrapping it. So I'm just going to unwrap this wall, for example. I would unwrap the entire thing regularly, but I don't need to. As this is just a render, don't waste time on things that you don't have to. Okay, so I've unwrapped everything that I want to unwrap. These are the things I'm leaving. Actually, I'm not leaving that. Usually when I unwrap things, I hide them as I go along, just so I don't click on it and go, oh yeah, I need to unwrap this, and then realize I actually don't. Everything else I am leaving though, because they're either small and you won't see the detail, or they don't need unwrapping. I think I've also unwrapped the ground. But yeah, I'm going to do Alt and H to unhide. So now I'm just going to grab some materials, and again, I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so now I have this downloaded. I'm just going to quickly grab the ones that I wanted. So I think it was that one, that one, that one, and that one. I'm going to do Control and X and bring them into this materials folder. I'm going to delete that one in there. And then I'm going to select all of these and click Extract to, extract each archive to a separate folder. And then delete those ones because we don't need them. Now we're going to use our polygon material converter. If you are confused about this, then I made a video on it. This is my last video, in fact. I'm going to then select that folder and find it, accept. So now I have all these materials loaded in. I'm just going to click on Load Materials. So now I'm going to select the materials that I want. So I want the brick for this outside. I don't know what scale that's going to be to. In fact, it's on its side. Excellent. So now we're going to do some messing around with the UVs. So we're going to go into the UV image editor. And we're going to change that. That still looks a little bit too small to me. In fact, I'm not entirely sure how much I like that. But it works for now. And I'm also just going to try and kind of get that a little bit uniform. In fact, what have they got for this original image? Oh, they have wood. I don't want wood. This works. It's fine. We are going to make it a little bit bigger though. In fact, a little bit smaller. This is your last real time to mess around with refining things. Otherwise you'll just have to end up wrapping things again and again. So I would use this time wisely. How does that look? Rotate it the wrong way again. I'm just going to scale that up a little bit. Can do the same with this one. How does that look? Substantially better. I just did some quick, dirty unwrapping on these because it is just a render. If I was doing something game ready, for example, then I would take some more time. But if you want a full video on like good industry standard sort of unwrapping sort of techniques, then I am more than happy to make one. Just leave a comment in the description. And that kind of looks good. I'm happy with that. Oh, why is that one not? Oh, that's why. I do like this material. This wood beam dark, 0 whatever. But I think it is quite dark. I'm not really liking how dark it is. So we're just going to sort of turn that color down in the node editor. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to kind of hijack one of these nodes, this one here. And we are going to click on add. We're going to add a mix RGB. And we're going to do a screen value. You can sort of mess about with this how you like. In fact, I think I might go for a divide instead. Nope. Lighten. Oh, lightens quite a lot. But I kind of, no, I don't really like that. What do we like? Saturation? Nope. Hue. Oh, I know why it's not doing what I want it to do. I want to try and kind of match that color a little bit. We're actually also going to ramp up this AO. So we're going to do an RGB curve and we're going to add it in there. Yes, that's reducing it, that's adding it. We're going to add the planks worn again. Going to go back into our UV image editor, do RN90. I'm not entirely sure which way that was unwrapping to. Yeah, it looks good. In fact, I'm not entirely sure if I like that camera angle. Let's bring that in a little bit. I might swap out this brick texture in a moment, but for now it's staying. So let's select the bars. We're going to add a new material. We're just going to call it metal. It's just going to be a blank color, but we're going to go for a principled shader instead of a diffuse one. We can change that on the surface. We're going to go with a dark grey. We're going to turn up the roughness a little bit to maybe there. We're going to turn down the specularity, turn on the metallic. And I kind of like how that looks. And then we're just going to change these hinges to the same thing. Now I'm going to select all of the other hinges and I will show you how we will apply the material to those all at the same time instead of doing them individually. So we're going to select all of them and then select that one last, the one with the material. And we're going to do, we're going to go to this materials bit, this little black arrow. We're going to click copy material to others and boom, we have it. Can't really see the hinges, but that's fine. In fact, I don't think I'm going to have this wood beam dark. I think I'm just going to have the wood planks worn. But I'm going to have to rotate it now. It's kind of a game of getting, you know, what you feel to be good textures or whatever for the job. Kind of seeing what works and what doesn't. so we won't worry about that one. And then kind of our final thing for texturing, we're going to add a material to this floor. I've chosen the wood flooring 1. That's going to be the wrong scale completely. That's huge. We're going to scale that up by that amount. I'm not entirely sure what that amount was, but it works. So now we kind of want this lighting inside to be a bit accurate, so we're going to add a plane. In fact, we're just going to duplicate this bottom plane and bring it up like that. We're just going to bring in this edge over here so it's not overlapping. In fact, we can do this quite precisely, so we're going to use the snapping tool. So we're going to do Shift and Tab, do G and Y, and then we're going to select the entire thing and G and Z and bring it down. So now the inside of that is quite dark. Now we are going to add a simple light source inside of here, just to make it look a little bit more natural. Something is possibly actually happening in this very fake house. We're going to up the size of this lamp. We're going to change it to like 2. That seems right to me. We're going to change the strength of this. We're going to make it more of a yellowy colour, a little bit darker. Let's see how that looks. What happens if we change it to an area? Oh, I did not add a material to the curtain, so again, give me a second. Okay, so I've now downloaded it. I've just opened up this zip folder, and I will bring it into my materials folder. We need to load this material in, but fortunately we only have to click this refresh button and load that one material. Now I'm going to select it. It's just a quick rough texture, but it will work for what we want. It's, I think, white, so I'm actually going to change it to red. I kind of like it a bit dark and dingy to be fair, but we'll still change it. Go to colour, hue and saturation. No, we don't want that. Let's delete that one. Colour, mix RGB. We're going to go to soft light and just change this to red. Turn it down a little bit. In fact, no, we're not. We're going to change that colour to... What colour are people's curtains? Maybe dark blue. We want to add some kind of atmosphere to this world. So we're going to go into our world tab. We're going to click on surface and use nodes. I'm going to change this colour to sky texture. I'm going to change the turbidity up. Makes it a little bit darker, maybe. Not that dark. You know, sort of change the time of day a little bit. And I'm quite happy with that render. Now before we render it, I'm going to go into this render layer tab. I'm going to turn on my denoising again and passes. We are going to turn on this ambient occlusion. Now if you notice, we have these, give it a second to render. These fireflies, we don't want these. That looks horrible and it will show up, people will notice them and they will cringe. What we're going to do is a very easy way to fix this is on the clamp indirect in the render tab underneath sampling. We're going to change that to 0.3. We could also change the clamp direct In the light paths, we could turn off this reflective caustics and refractive caustics. We could change this fill to glossy, but that actually seemed to have worked first time, so we're going to use that. Okay, I'm going to render this and then I will be back. Okay, so now that's finished rendering, I'm going to press N. No, I'm not going to press N. I'm going to drag out a new window, and I'm going to go to Node Editor and go to the render layers. I'm going to use nodes, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to move this render layers out of the way. So this is compositing basically. Did this in the original video, the first video, but it's something that I do to most of my images. It's just overlay some ambient occlusion to show off some more of this detail. I will also critique my work in a second. There's a lot of things that I would improve about it if I gave myself some more time. But as a rough image, it works quite well. I quite like it. But I'm going to just add this RGB curves, take it into a multiply. So basically I drag the ambient occlusion into the image of this RGB curves, multiply this original image by this RGB curves, change the way it multiplies it, change the way it mixes it to multiply, and send that into the composite. And then I just drag this RGB curve down a little bit, so it's a little bit more gloomy. Now I just want to take some time to critique this. So the things I would generally change about it is I would stop this from repeating up here. Can I actually change the color of? So let's do that. Can I change the color of this? I'm sure I can. I don't really use the grease pencil a whole lot, honestly. Yeah, so let's change that to red, light red. So I would stop these two from repeating each other. I would generally, these curtains, make them look a bit more distinct from each other, because at the moment they're very similar, obviously because they're mirrored. Inside of here, I would maybe have some small props, maybe do something with this windowsill. Also feel free to move around some of these vertex points, so like maybe move these around so you can see the gap in between where they're actually joined. Feel free to mess up the edges of some of these as well, just make them slightly different in scale. You may not notice if you do it to one object, but if you do it to a lot of them, then you will. I would also personally change this background texture. I don't think it fits in very well with this specific render, but sure, we'll keep it because it works well enough. Some more things I would do to it. Yeah, I would generally just add props. I would maybe add a vignette. I don't know what it's called. I'm just going to quickly write it on screen for you. Vignette. I don't know how to pronounce that word properly. There you go. Maybe so like this side of the screen specifically, so like a nice gradient. Yeah, so those are the things I would generally change about, and maybe the color of these curtains as well. It's kind of a purpley color. That's not really what I was going for, but again, it works because it's quite dark inside of there. But yeah, so that's everything I would do for now. That looks like a face with some eyes and a big nose and a mouth peeking out from some curtains. But yep, so that's everything for now. If you liked the video, then feel free to leave a like. If you have any comments, questions, or criticisms, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And if you would like me to go over anything in particular, then feel free to ask. I will happily do so. Anyway, thank you and goodbye.